So yeah, Production Diary episode 3, and I'm literally recording this a couple hours after uploading the second Production Diary, and we've just finished our pre-production meeting. A couple of people couldn't turn up, unfortunately. Well, we made do without, but yeah, it was a good time. I got a nice little surprise. I wasn't expecting Sandy, my PM, who I've worked with as long as I have with Amelia. I wasn't expecting her to bring a cute little pie, which I finished, with a gigantic candle sparkler thing on top, so that was cool. Thank you, Sandy. And yeah, it was kind of like a mini birthday party whilst also discussing a lot of work. We basically went through a whole bunch of the stuff for the movie. We also got to meet with some of the interns. Thank you, man, for hooking that up. A couple of cool kids. We'll see how they turn out. And we basically were just locking down a bunch of the days for the shoot. Now, I think I mentioned in the last video diary that we had scheduled 6 days out of 10. Earlier this morning, I found out a bit of bad news, unfortunately, with regards to one of the actors who coincidentally is needed for 2 of those 6 days. He's on another shoot, so unfortunately we have to reschedule those as well because he's in a shoot in Singapore and they're overrunning, so they can't release him, so he won't be back in the country until, not sure yet, he's still gonna get back to me. So those 2 days are gonna have to be rescheduled. So we actually only have 4 days of shooting and probably pick up the slack after that. Probably maybe second week of July. After the second week of July, we'll see, because we still have to juggle everyone else's schedules. Like I said before about, in the last video about favors and stuff like that, that's one of those things. But it's cool, because one thing that does allow me to do, it's something that I did with my first indie feature, Kickflip, because we shot Kickflip over weekends. You know, we didn't shoot on any weekdays because I had a day job. Most of everyone who was working on it had a day job. We could only shoot on weekends. So that movie actually took us 3 months. So what I would do during that time is actually edit the scenes in between, which gave me a chance to check like, okay, this scene's rhythm is like this, or oh, if this scene is like that, then I don't really need these other bunch of scenes. That's kind of redundant. So with this one, those 4 days actually account for almost 50% of the movie. I would say 50 to 60% of the movie. So that's a nice big chunk for me to edit whilst we try and figure out how to schedule the other days. So that'll work out. I'll admit I was feeling a bit down earlier today of the news about the actor not being able to make it and my DP overscheduling himself and couldn't attend the production meeting. So I was feeling a bit down on my birthday, but then Sandy helped perk me back up, and everyone else together, you know, helped perk me back up, and that was really appreciated. So it's just a little update on that, really. And I figured I'd answer 2 of the questions that were asked together in this video, because they're both equipment related questions. Let me just double check what those questions were. So we had some questions about the equipment and about equipment in general. So Lee Bales, he asked, so are you hiring the lenses or any gear, or is it stuff you already own? Good question. It's pretty much the gear that I own and my DP owns. We're pooling everything together. I've got a bunch on my side. I've got a whole bunch of LED panels. I've got some redheads, a blondie, some DIY fixtures, if you will. Some sound equipment, riggings for the camera, a bunch of tripods, tons of light stands, 2 C-stands. You know, more than enough to do a basic shoot. And then on Tech Z's side, hopefully he'll be able to include some more LEDs. My sound equipment, his sound equipment, we're going to combine that together as well. Lenses will mostly be on his side, maybe together with some of mine, we'll see. But yeah, it's an amalgamation. And of course the Fujifilm camera, the Fujifilm X-H1, that's with me right now, so we'll be using that. So yeah, I don't see us renting a bunch of stuff, because I've even got tracks and a dolly and a jib arm if need be, which I don't think we'll use. The only thing I can think of is maybe, you know, if we need a gimbal at some point, but I think Texie's got one, and if not, a friend of ours also has one. There's ways of getting it, you know. When you're doing something like this, it's best to use what you have, because if you start factoring in rental costs, then that automatically becomes a huge chunk of your budget. So yeah, it's you take stock of the people around you and what you have. And I'm also a big proponent of shooting with what you have. I wanted to shoot with the Fujifilm X-H1 because I knew I just wanted to shoot with a Fuji camera for this movie. I wanted something different. But if I didn't have the Fuji camera, I'd use whatever camera that I have with me, because I still got a bunch of cameras. It's just right now in this house, this is the only camera that also shoots in 4K. The other equipment question that was asked was, if I can find it, here it is from Satish Kumar on the first video diary. Your favorite mirrorless camera? Question mark. That is really tough, actually. That's a tough question to answer because technology changes. Technology changes a lot. I mean, if you asked me that question just, 7, 8 years ago, I'd probably say something else from what I'd say now. Although there are a bunch of mirrorless cameras that I like for different things. For example, I'm really digging the Fujifilm X-H1. I still haven't put up my full review yet because it's going to tie in with this movie. Just have a few things I need to sort out. But I'm really digging the Fujifilm X-H1. Does it have its flaws? Yes. But it also has its advantages, and I'm kind of liking it. I'm really digging it as a new camera because I like to use new things. I don't like to stick to one system all the way because I think, when you do that, you just kind of get stuck in it and you don't open yourself up to new opportunities. I like looking for new technology, especially new disruptive technology, which leads me to one of my other favorite mirrorless cameras, the Sony A7S, the very first one. That to me was a very cool camera, which I still use to this day. It's been my workhorse for everything I've shot in the past couple of years. Now, since then, I think it's on the Sony A7S 3 now or 4. And that's the thing, I've never felt the need to upgrade the Sony A7S. A lot of people that I know have. In fact, I don't know many people that have the original 12 megapixel Sony A7S, but out of the A7 series for video, that one's my favorite. Because the low light was just insane. And over the years, they've improved on that camera, with the stabilization, internal 4K, all those things. S-Log 3, is it now? Well, you see, I haven't even kept up with it because to me, the updates are not disruptive. They're just improvements. It's the reason why I loved the 5D Mark II when it came out, because that was a game changer as well. It was a disruptive technology. In terms of photography, the tastes change a little bit. If it's photos with the Sony A7 series, then I prefer the Sony A7R. Some of the photos I've taken with that, they totally beat the crap out of the A7S photos. I'm sorry, they just do. Other cameras I love for photography, my Fujifilm X-E1, actually. I really like the X-E shape. My X-E1, it's pretty old by today's standards. There's a lag between taking a photo and waiting for the picture to pop up on the screen. The viewfinder is nowhere near as good as on any camera these days. But I still use that camera for photography. I still use it to bring around and take photos because it's a nice small rangefinder size camera. I also do like the Olympuses for photography. I haven't had a chance to play with one for video, but some of the stuff that I've seen with the sensor stabilization is pretty insane. That being said, I'm not a big fan of micro four thirds 2x crop. Already on APS-C, I feel, you lose a little bit because I really like the full frame image. Micro four thirds 2x, it's, I really tried to make that camera work because I do like Olympus as a brand from the film days. It's a great camera as well, don't get me wrong. I've taken some cool photos with, I think mine was an EM5, OMD 5 or 10, I'm not sure which. I've taken some great photos, it's just, yeah, that 2x crop, that does make a difference to me. Which is why I've never really played around with any of the Panasonic GH cameras. I've seen some great results with those cameras, don't get me wrong. What I don't like is inherently how the Panasonic treats color. I'm not a big fan of that. And it's weird because on mini DV, the Panasonic DVX102, that was like the workhorse digital camera for a lot of television in Malaysia. But there's some interesting stuff that's going on with those cameras and people who like them swear by them. Other special mentions though in terms of mirrorless cameras. Back in the NEX days of Sony when they first introduced the E-mount, ooh, I love the NEX 5N. It's a weird choice, some might say, because it's one of the much older cameras. But to me, Sony's 16 megapixel camera during that period was nice. Because I had the NEX 5N And then I thought, you know, maybe I should upgrade this, and I got the NEX7, which takes much nicer photos. It's a much nicer build, but it costs a ton more. And the video was actually worse in my eyes. It made me really miss the 5N actually. One of the guys that I love following on YouTube, Vintage Lenses for Video, he still does tests on the NEX5N. It's a great 1080 image. The only thing I don't like about it, the body is so small, it's too small. You know, once you start putting like an average size lens, it's so front heavy, it's pretty ridiculous. Yeah, but right now, yeah, the Fujifilm X-H1 is the camera I've been using for the past couple of months, and I've been really digging. But yeah, I really do cover the XE3. So yeah, hope that answers the questions. I do tend to ramble on quite a bit. You should see me when I'm trying to edit these videos. It's ridiculous. I have to cut down 30-40 minutes of footage to like 10 minutes. That's it for this episode, and more episodes will come as more stuff develops. Thanks for watching.